Question 1. Comparative studies suggest that the accuracy of cargo manifests is a critical factor in maritime safety and regulatory compliance. For COSCO shipping vessel preparing for departure, a junior officer notices a minor discrepancy between the listed quantity of a specific commodity on the cargo manifest and the visually observed quantity loaded. What is the most appropriate course of action for the junior officer to take? Option A. Trust the shipper's provided manifest as accurate and proceed with departure, as the officer's primary role is operational efficiency. Option B. Proceed with loading the cargo as scheduled, assuming the discrepancy is minor and will be addressed by port authorities or the next port of call. Option C. Immediately report the discrepancy to the chief officer and the designated compliance department within COSCO shipping, requesting clarification and guidance on rectification. Option D. Make a note of the discrepancy in the ship's logbook, but continue with the loading process without further immediate action. The correct answer is C. Immediately report the discrepancy to the chief officer and the designated compliance department within COSCO shipping, requesting clarification and guidance on rectification. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an individual at COSCO shipping to navigate potential conflicts between operational efficiency and strict adherence to maritime regulations, specifically concerning cargo manifest accuracy and reporting. The pressure to maintain smooth operations and meet deadlines can create a temptation to overlook minor discrepancies. However, the integrity of shipping documentation is paramount for safety, security, and compliance, making careful judgment essential. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves meticulously verifying the cargo manifest against the actual goods loaded, identifying any discrepancies, and reporting them immediately through the designated channels within COSCO shipping, adhering to all relevant maritime laws and company policies. This upholds the principle of utmost good faith in shipping documentation, which is a cornerstone of international maritime law and COSCO shipping's own operational guidelines. Accurate manifests are critical for customs clearance, risk assessment, emergency response, and preventing illicit activities. Incorrect approach is analysis, ignoring minor discrepancies on the cargo manifest and proceeding with loading, assuming they are inconsequential, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach violates the fundamental requirement for accurate documentation, which can lead to severe consequences, including fines, detention of vessels, and reputational damage for COSCO shipping. It also compromises safety by potentially misrepresenting the nature or quantity of cargo on board. Assuming the discrepancy will be rectified later without immediate reporting is also a failure. This delays the necessary corrective actions and creates a window of non-compliance. It shifts the burden of correction to others and increases the risk of the discrepancy being overlooked or compounded. Relying solely on the shipper's assurance that the manifest is correct without independent verification is another failure. While shippers are responsible for providing accurate information, the shipping company, COSCO Shipping, has a duty of care to ensure the documentation it relies upon is as accurate as possible, especially when it impacts operational safety and regulatory compliance. This reliance can lead to COSCO Shipping being held liable for inaccuracies it could have reasonably identified. Professional reasoning. Professionals at COSCO Shipping should employ a systematic approach to cargo documentation. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing all relevant COSCO shipping policies and international maritime regulations regarding cargo manifests. 2. Implementing a robust verification process for all incoming documentation. 3. Prioritizing accuracy and completeness over speed when dealing with critical documents like manifests. 4. Establishing clear communication protocols for reporting and resolving discrepancies. 5. Escalating issues promptly if they cannot be resolved at the initial level, ensuring that all actions are documented. Question 2. The control framework reveals that a new route for COSCO shipping vessels has been identified as potentially exposing the fleet to increased environmental hazards due to proximity to sensitive marine ecosystems. Which approach to managing these identified risks is most aligned with international maritime safety and environmental protection regulations? Option A. Postpone the detailed risk assessment until an incident occurs, then address the specific issues that arise. Option B. Conduct a detailed environmental impact assessment, identify specific risks, and implement a comprehensive mitigation plan including enhanced monitoring and emergency response protocols. Option C. Implement minimal operational changes, focusing primarily on cost reduction for the new route, and rely on general industry safety guidelines. Option D. Proceed with the new route, assuming that existing safety measures are sufficient and that the likelihood of environmental incidents is low. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed environmental impact assessment, identify specific risks, and implement a comprehensive mitigation plan including enhanced monitoring and emergency response protocols. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires COSCO shipping to balance operational efficiency with strict adherence to international maritime regulations and safety standards. Pressure to meet deadlines and maintain profitability can create a temptation to overlook or downplay potential risks identified during an impact assessment. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the assessment is thorough, objective, and leads to appropriate mitigation strategies, rather than being a mere formality. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and proactive assessment of potential impacts, followed by the implementation of robust mitigation measures. This aligns with the principles of responsible maritime operations and the overarching goal of preventing incidents that could harm personnel, the environment, or the company's reputation. Specifically, it reflects the spirit of international conventions such as the International Safety Management (ISM) Code, which mandates a safety management system that ensures safe operations and environmental protection. By prioritizing a thorough impact assessment and subsequent corrective actions, COSCO Shipping demonstrates a commitment to risk management and regulatory compliance, which are fundamental to its operational license and long-term sustainability. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings without adequately considering the potential consequences of identified risks would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the ethical obligation to prioritize safety and environmental protection over short-term financial gains. Such an approach could lead to regulatory noncompliance, fines, operational disruptions, and severe reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves delaying or deferring the implementation of mitigation measures based on optimistic assumptions about risk likelihood or severity, is also professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the precautionary principle inherent in maritime safety regulations. It exposes COSCO Shipping to unacceptable levels of risk and potential liability. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or superficial checks rather than a systematic and documented impact assessment process would be a significant failure. This undermines the integrity of the control framework and leaves COSCO Shipping vulnerable to unforeseen events. It fails to meet the requirements for a robust safety management system that demands systematic identification, evaluation, and control of hazards. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the full scope of potential impacts, both direct and indirect. They should then consult relevant regulatory requirements and industry best practices to establish a baseline for acceptable risk. The decision-making process should involve a clear hierarchy of controls, prioritizing elimination and substitution of hazards, followed by engineering controls, administrative controls, and finally, personal protective equipment. Regular review and updates to the impact assessment and mitigation strategies are crucial to ensure ongoing effectiveness. Question 3. Regulatory review indicates that COSCO Shipping is planning a new transoceanic route. To ensure compliance and minimize environmental risk, which approach to assessing the impact of this new route on marine ecosystems and potential emissions is most appropriate? Option A. Prioritize cost-effectiveness in the impact assessment, focusing only on measures that offer the greatest immediate financial savings for COSCO Shipping. Option B. Perform a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates all applicable international conventions and the national legislation of all countries whose waters the vessels will traverse, aiming to meet the highest applicable standards. Option C. Focus the impact assessment solely on the environmental regulations of the country where COSCO Shipping's headquarters is located. Option D. Conduct an impact assessment that considers the minimum environmental regulations of the flag state of the vessels. The correct answer is D. Conduct an impact assessment that considers the minimum environmental regulations of the flag state of the vessels. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, must navigate a complex web of international maritime regulations and national laws. The core challenge lies in ensuring that operational decisions, particularly those involving environmental impact, align with the most stringent applicable standards, even if less stringent ones are technically permissible in certain contexts. This requires a proactive and comprehensive approach to regulatory compliance and risk management. The correct approach involves conducting a thorough impact assessment that considers all relevant international conventions and national legislation applicable to COSCO Shipping's operations, including the specific ports of call and territorial waters. This assessment must identify potential environmental risks and propose mitigation strategies that meet or exceed the highest applicable standards. This aligns with the overarching principles of responsible maritime operations, the spirit of international environmental conventions like MARPOL, and the ethical imperative to minimize harm to the marine environment. It demonstrates a commitment to corporate social responsibility and proactive risk mitigation, which is crucial for maintaining COSCO Shipping's reputation and operational continuity. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on the minimum requirements of the flag state. This fails to acknowledge that coastal states and port states often have more stringent regulations that must be adhered to when vessels enter their jurisdiction. This approach risks non-compliance, potential fines, delays, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to only consider the regulations of the country where COSCO Shipping is headquartered. Maritime operations are inherently international, and compliance must extend to all jurisdictions in which the company operates. Ignoring the regulations of other relevant states would be a clear violation of international maritime law and a failure of due diligence. Finally, an approach that prioritizes cost savings over comprehensive environmental impact assessment would be fundamentally flawed. While economic considerations are important, they cannot supersede regulatory obligations and ethical responsibilities, especially concerning environmental protection. This approach would expose COSCO Shipping to significant legal and reputational risks. Professionals at COSCO Shipping should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks, both international and national. This should be followed by a risk-based assessment of potential environmental impacts, prioritizing the most stringent standards where conflicts arise. Mitigation strategies should be developed and implemented, with continuous monitoring and review to ensure ongoing compliance and improvement. This proactive and comprehensive approach ensures that COSCO Shipping operates responsibly and sustainably across all its global activities. Question 4. Consider a scenario where a COSCO Shipping employee discovers that a close family member is establishing a new logistics company that will directly compete with services offered by COSCO Shipping. The employee has the authority to influence the selection of third-party service providers for certain COSCO Shipping contracts. What is the most appropriate course of action for the COSCO Shipping employee in this situation? Option A. Immediately disclose the family relationship and the existence of the competing business to their direct supervisor and the COSCO Shipping Compliance Department, and recuse themselves from any decision-making processes that could impact the family member's company. Option B. Continue to participate in contract selection processes as usual, believing that their professional integrity is sufficient to prevent any bias, and avoid mentioning the family connection to anyone at COSCO Shipping. Option C. Proceed with awarding contracts to the most competitive bidder, assuming their personal relationship will not influence their professional judgment, and only disclose if a specific issue arises later. Option D. Discreetly gather information about COSCO Shipping's upcoming contract opportunities and share it with their family member to help the new company gain a competitive edge. The correct answer is A. Immediately disclose the family relationship and the existence of the competing business to their direct supervisor and the COSCO Shipping Compliance Department, and recuse themselves from any decision-making processes that could impact the family member's company. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a COSCO Shipping employee to navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure compliance with internal policies and potentially broader maritime regulations concerning fair competition and ethical business practices. The core of the challenge lies in balancing personal relationships with professional responsibilities, ensuring that decisions are made impartially and do not create an unfair advantage for the related entity. Careful judgment is required to uphold COSCO Shipping's reputation and adhere to its code of conduct. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent disclosure of the relationship to the relevant COSCO shipping management or compliance department. This allows the company to assess the situation, implement appropriate safeguards, and make informed decisions regarding any potential business dealings. This approach aligns with ethical business principles and regulatory expectations that mandate the disclosure of potential conflicts of interest to prevent impropriety and maintain a level playing field. It demonstrates integrity and a commitment to COSCO Shipping's compliance framework. An incorrect approach of proceeding with the business relationship without disclosure would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Bypasses established internal controls designed to prevent conflicts of interest and could lead to accusations of favoritism or insider dealing, undermining trust and COSCO Shipping's commitment to fair practices. Another incorrect approach of relying solely on personal assurances that no undue influence will be exerted is insufficient. Professional standards and regulations often require formal disclosure and assessment, not just personal assurances, to ensure objectivity and accountability. Finally, an approach of waiting for a specific issue to arise before disclosing the relationship is reactive and risky. It implies a lack of foresight and a potential willingness to overlook or downplay conflicts until they become undeniable problems, which is contrary to a proactive compliance culture. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes transparency, adherence to company policy, and ethical conduct. This involves recognizing potential conflicts of interest, understanding the relevant internal policies and any applicable external regulations, and proactively disclosing such situations to the appropriate authorities within the organization. When in doubt, seeking guidance from the compliance department or legal counsel is a crucial step in ensuring responsible decision-making. Question 5. Benchmark analysis indicates that COSCO Shipping is considering implementing a new automated cargo loading system. Which approach to assessing the potential impact of this system best aligns with the absolute priority of adhering to the regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for maritime operations? Option A. Prioritize feedback from operational staff on their comfort level with the new system, using this as the primary basis for impact assessment. Option B. Rely on the manufacturer's assurances regarding the system's safety and compliance, supplemented by general industry best practices for automated systems. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed system's efficiency gains and potential cost savings, assuming existing safety protocols are sufficient. Option D. Perform a detailed impact assessment by cross-referencing the system's operational parameters and potential failure modes against the specific requirements of SOLAS, MARPOL, and relevant national maritime laws of flag and port states. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed system's efficiency gains and potential cost savings, assuming existing safety protocols are sufficient. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, must navigate complex and potentially conflicting regulatory landscapes when assessing the impact of new operational procedures. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that any impact assessment is not only comprehensive in identifying potential risks, but also strictly adheres to the specific legal and regulatory framework governing COSCO Shipping's operations within its relevant jurisdictions, particularly concerning maritime safety and environmental protection. A failure to do so could lead to significant legal penalties, operational disruptions, and reputational damage. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the proposed operational changes against the specific requirements of the International Maritime Organization, IMO, conventions, such as the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea (SOLAS) and the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships (MARPOL), as well as any relevant national legislation of the flag state and port states where COSCO shipping vessels operate. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the legal and regulatory obligations of the company, ensuring that operational changes are compliant and mitigate identified risks within the established framework. It prioritizes a proactive and legally sound assessment, which is fundamental to responsible maritime operations and risk management. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on internal company policies or general industry best practices without a rigorous cross-reference to the applicable regulatory framework. This fails because it may not capture specific legal mandates or prohibitions, leaving COSCO Shipping exposed to noncompliance. Another incorrect approach would be to focus only on the economic benefits of the operational changes, neglecting the potential safety or environmental impacts and their associated regulatory implications. This is ethically and legally unsound, as it prioritizes profit over safety and environmental stewardship, which are paramount in the maritime industry and heavily regulated. Finally, an approach that assumes existing regulations are sufficient without a specific assessment of the new procedure's unique impact is also flawed, as novel procedures may introduce unforeseen risks that require specific mitigation strategies mandated by law. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all relevant regulatory bodies and legal frameworks applicable to the proposed operational change. This should be followed by a detailed risk identification process, where each identified risk is then mapped against the specific requirements of the relevant regulations. Mitigation strategies should be developed to address any identified gaps or noncompliance, with a clear understanding of the legal consequences of inaction. This structured approach ensures that all assessments are grounded in legal reality and ethical responsibility. Question 6. The investigation demonstrates that COSCO Shipping's recent cargo loading procedures at a particular port may have deviated from established safety protocols, potentially increasing the risk of cargo shifting during transit. Which approach best addresses this situation to ensure future compliance and operational integrity? Option A. Immediately resume standard loading procedures, assuming the deviation was an isolated incident, and issue a general reminder to port staff about following protocols. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the investigation findings to identify the root cause of the deviation, implement targeted corrective actions based on regulatory requirements, and establish a monitoring system to verify compliance. Option C. Focus on disciplinary actions against the personnel directly involved in the loading process without a broader review of the procedures themselves. Option D. Prioritize expediting the next vessel's departure by temporarily suspending detailed review of the incident until after the current operational demands are met. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the investigation findings to identify the root cause of the deviation, implement targeted corrective actions based on regulatory requirements, and establish a monitoring system to verify compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's operational needs and the strict adherence to maritime safety regulations. COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, must navigate complex international and national laws governing vessel operations, cargo handling, and crew welfare. The challenge lies in balancing the urgency of commercial demands with the non-negotiable requirement for safety and compliance, especially when an investigation reveals potential deviations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any corrective actions taken are both effective in addressing the identified issues and fully compliant with all applicable regulations, without compromising operational efficiency unnecessarily. The correct approach involves a thorough, evidence-based review of the investigation findings and a systematic implementation of corrective actions that directly address the identified noncompliance. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes regulatory adherence and safety, which are paramount in the maritime industry. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea (SOLAS) and the International Maritime Organization (IMO) guidelines, which mandate that shipping companies establish and maintain safety management systems to prevent accidents and ensure compliance. By focusing on root cause analysis and implementing targeted measures, COSCO Shipping demonstrates a commitment to continuous improvement and a proactive safety culture, thereby mitigating future risks and potential liabilities. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate operational resumption without addressing the root causes identified in the investigation would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the spirit and letter of maritime safety regulations, which are designed to prevent recurrence of incidents. Such an approach could lead to repeat violations, increased risk of accidents, and severe penalties from regulatory bodies. Another incorrect approach, which involves superficial corrective actions that do not genuinely resolve the underlying issues, also represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This demonstrates a lack of commitment to safety and compliance, potentially leading to a false sense of security while the actual risks persist. A third incorrect approach, which involves blaming individuals without a systemic review, fails to address potential flaws in the company's procedures or training, thereby missing opportunities for systemic improvement and potentially creating a culture of fear rather than accountability. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, fully understand the scope and findings of the investigation. Second, identify the specific regulations or guidelines that have been potentially breached. Third, conduct a root cause analysis to determine why the non-compliance occurred. Fourth, develop and implement corrective and preventive actions that are proportionate to the identified risks and directly address the root causes. Fifth, monitor the effectiveness of these actions and ensure ongoing compliance. This framework ensures that decisions are informed, evidence-based, and aligned with both regulatory requirements and ethical responsibilities. Question 7. The analysis reveals that COSCO Shipping is considering a new operational directive to expedite crew deployment. Which approach to assessing the impact of this directive on hiring practices best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical considerations for COSCO Shipping? Option A. Rely on the experience of senior management to gauge the directive's impact without formal regulatory or policy review. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the directive's implications against all relevant maritime employment laws, international conventions applicable to COSCO Shipping's operations, and internal hiring policies to ensure continued compliance and ethical seafarer treatment. Option C. Prioritize the directive's potential to reduce crewing costs and accelerate deployment timelines, assuming existing hiring processes are sufficient. Option D. Implement the directive immediately and address any potential compliance issues that arise retrospectively. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the directive's implications against all relevant maritime employment laws, international conventions applicable to COSCO Shipping's operations, and internal hiring policies to ensure continued compliance and ethical seafarer treatment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's operational needs and the stringent regulatory framework governing maritime hiring and employment. COSCO Shipping, as a major player, must navigate these regulations meticulously to ensure compliance, maintain operational integrity, and uphold ethical employment practices. The difficulty lies in interpreting and applying specific provisions of the relevant regulatory framework, which may have nuanced requirements or be subject to evolving interpretations. Careful judgment is required to balance business objectives with legal and ethical obligations, particularly when assessing the impact of new operational directives. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes adherence to the COSCO Shipping Hiring Assessment Test's specified regulatory framework. This approach is best professional practice because it systematically evaluates how any proposed operational change might affect compliance with all relevant maritime employment laws, international conventions, if applicable to the exam's jurisdiction, and internal company policies. Specifically, it ensures that any adjustments to hiring criteria or processes do not inadvertently lead to discrimination, violate working hour regulations, compromise safety standards, or breach contractual obligations with seafarers, all of which are critical under maritime employment law and ethical seafaring standards. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings without considering regulatory implications would fail to meet legal obligations. This could lead to penalties, reputational damage, and potential legal challenges from affected seafarers. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over due diligence risks overlooking critical compliance issues. This might result in hiring individuals who do not meet the required qualifications or certifications, thereby violating safety regulations and potentially jeopardizing vessel operations. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence, past practices without verifying current regulatory compliance, would be equally flawed. This ignores the dynamic nature of regulations and could lead to outdated or non-compliant hiring procedures, exposing COSCO Shipping to significant legal and operational risks. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the applicable regulatory landscape. Before implementing any operational change, a comprehensive impact assessment should be conducted, identifying potential areas of non-compliance. This involves consulting legal counsel or compliance officers, reviewing relevant legislation and guidelines, and seeking clarification on any ambiguous points. The assessment should then inform the decision-making process, ensuring that any chosen course of action is both operationally effective and fully compliant with all legal and ethical requirements. Question 8. The evaluation methodology shows that COSCO Shipping is considering a new ballast water treatment system. Which approach to assessing the impact of this system best aligns with the company's commitment to regulatory compliance and environmental stewardship? Option A. An assessment focused primarily on the initial purchase price and installation costs of the system, assuming that any system meeting basic regulatory requirements will be sufficient. Option B. A comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the system's effectiveness in meeting international ballast water management standards, its integration with existing vessel operations, and its long-term financial implications, while also considering potential impacts on crew workload and safety. Option C. An evaluation that prioritizes the ease of operation for the crew, even if it means slightly compromising on the system's full environmental treatment capabilities. Option D. A quick review of manufacturer claims and competitor adoption rates without detailed analysis of COSCO Shipping's specific vessel types and operational routes. The correct answer is B. A comprehensive impact assessment that analyzes the system's effectiveness in meeting international ballast water management standards, its integration with existing vessel operations, and its long-term financial implications, while also considering potential impacts on crew workload and safety. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for COSCO Shipping personnel by requiring them to navigate the complexities of international maritime regulations and company policy when assessing the impact of a new environmental initiative. The challenge lies in balancing the potential benefits of the initiative against its operational and financial implications, while strictly adhering to the applicable regulatory framework. This necessitates a thorough understanding of both the environmental goals and the legal obligations governing COSCO Shipping's operations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the environmental, operational, and financial consequences of the proposed initiative. This approach is professionally sound because it aligns with the principles of responsible corporate governance and regulatory compliance. Specifically, it requires COSCO Shipping to consider the implications for compliance with international environmental conventions, such as MARPOL Annex VI, and any relevant national or regional environmental laws. A thorough assessment ensures that the company can implement the initiative in a manner that is both environmentally effective and legally permissible, minimizing risks of non-compliance and associated penalties. It also allows for proactive identification of potential challenges and the development of mitigation strategies. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that focuses solely on the potential cost savings of the initiative without considering its environmental effectiveness or regulatory compliance would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for environmental stewardship and a potential violation of international and national environmental regulations that mandate certain emission standards or pollution prevention measures. Such a narrow focus could lead to the adoption of a solution that is financially attractive but environmentally inadequate or even illegal. An approach that prioritizes the immediate operational convenience of the crew over the long-term environmental benefits and regulatory requirements would also be professionally flawed. This overlooks the company's broader responsibility to minimize its environmental footprint and adhere to international maritime standards. It could result in COSCO Shipping failing to meet its environmental commitments and potentially facing sanctions for non-compliance with regulations designed to protect the marine environment. An approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or superficial research without a structured, data-driven evaluation would be professionally weak. This lack of rigor means that the true impact of the initiative cannot be accurately determined, increasing the risk of making an uninformed decision. Such an approach fails to meet the professional standard of due diligence required when implementing significant operational changes, especially those with environmental and regulatory implications for COSCO Shipping. Professional reasoning. Professionals at COSCO Shipping should adopt a structured, risk-based approach to impact assessment. This involves 1. Clearly defining the scope and objectives of the initiative. 2. Identifying all relevant regulatory requirements and industry best practices. 3. Systematically gathering data on environmental, operational, and financial impacts. 4. Analyzing the potential risks and benefits associated with each impact. 5. Developing mitigation strategies for identified risks. 6. Documenting the assessment process and findings thoroughly. This methodical process ensures that decisions are informed, compliant, and aligned with COSCO Shipping's strategic goals and ethical responsibilities. Question 9. To address the challenge of navigating gift acceptance policies and preventing potential conflicts of interest within COSCO Shipping's international operations, which approach best ensures compliance with ethical standards and regulatory frameworks? Option A. Refusing all gifts outright to avoid any potential for misinterpretation or conflict, regardless of the relationship with the giver or the nature of the gift. Option B. Accepting gifts only from long-standing business partners, assuming they are tokens of goodwill and do not require declaration if their value is perceived as modest. Option C. Relying on personal judgment to determine if a gift is appropriate, based on cultural norms and the perceived intent of the giver without formal declaration. Option D. Declaring all gifts received, regardless of value or perceived intent, and seeking guidance from COSCO Shipping's compliance department when in doubt about their appropriateness. The correct answer is B. Accepting gifts only from long-standing business partners, assuming they are tokens of goodwill and do not require declaration if their value is perceived as modest. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for COSCO Shipping employees regarding the ethical and regulatory implications of accepting gifts. The core difficulty lies in balancing professional courtesy and relationship building with the strict requirements of anti-bribery and corruption regulations, as well as internal company policies designed to prevent conflicts of interest and maintain integrity. Employees must exercise sound judgment to discern when a gift crosses the line from a token of appreciation to an inducement or a bribe, which could compromise COSCO Shipping's reputation and lead to severe legal and financial penalties. The global nature of COSCO Shipping's operations further complicates this, as different cultural norms exist around gift giving, but regulatory frameworks often impose a universal standard of conduct. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to COSCO Shipping's code of conduct and relevant anti-bribery legislation. This approach prioritizes transparency and compliance by requiring employees to declare any gifts received, regardless of perceived value, and to seek guidance from the compliance department when in doubt. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance, which mandate robust internal controls to prevent corruption. Specifically, such an approach is justified by regulations like the UK Bribery Act 2010, if applicable to the exam's jurisdiction, or similar international anti-corruption laws that impose strict liability and severe penalties for bribery offenses. The emphasis on declaration and seeking guidance ensures that potential conflicts of interest are identified and mitigated proactively, safeguarding COSCO Shipping's business integrity and its employees from legal repercussions. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that assumes small gifts are always acceptable without declaration fails to recognize the potential for even seemingly minor tokens to establish a pattern of undue influence or to be perceived as a quid pro quo. This overlooks the intent and impact of gift giving, which can be scrutinized under anti-bribery laws. Ethically, it erodes trust and can create an environment where more significant inducements become normalized. Another incorrect approach, which is to accept gifts only from established business partners without considering their nature or value, is also flawed. This creates an arbitrary distinction that does not address the core risk. The source of the gift is less important than its potential to influence business decisions. Without a clear policy and declaration process, COSCO Shipping remains vulnerable to allegations of favoritism or corruption, regardless of the giver's status. Finally, an approach that relies solely on personal judgment without consulting company policy or seeking expert advice is highly risky. Personal judgment can be subjective and influenced by cultural biases or a desire to maintain relationships, potentially leading to misinterpretations of what constitutes an acceptable gift. This bypasses the established compliance framework designed to provide objective guidance and protection for both the employee and the company. Professional reasoning. Professionals at COSCO Shipping should adopt a proactive and cautious approach to gift giving. The decision-making process should begin with a thorough understanding of COSCO Shipping's internal policies on gifts and hospitality, alongside any applicable external regulations. When presented with a gift, the immediate step should be to assess its nature, value, and the context of its offering. If there is any ambiguity or if the gift exceeds a nominal value, the professional should err on the side of caution. This involves consulting the company's compliance department or designated ethics officer for clarification and guidance. All accepted gifts, even those deemed acceptable, should be formally declared according to company procedures. This systematic process ensures that potential ethical breaches and regulatory violations are identified and addressed before they can cause harm to the individual or COSCO Shipping. Question 10. The review process indicates a proposal within COSCO Shipping to streamline cargo handling procedures to reduce turnaround times in port, potentially impacting the frequency of certain safety checks. Which approach best demonstrates adherence to COSCO Shipping's commitment to regulatory compliance and operational integrity? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment, evaluating the proposed changes against all relevant international maritime regulations, COSCO Shipping Safety Management System, and national flag state requirements to identify any potential compliance or safety risks before implementation. Option B. Implement the proposed changes immediately to gain a competitive advantage, assuming current safety standards are sufficient. Option C. Seek legal counsel to find interpretations of existing regulations that might permit the reduction in safety checks without explicit violation. Option D. Proceed with the changes, but instruct port staff to be extra vigilant during cargo handling, relying on their experience to compensate for reduced formal checks. The correct answer is B. Implement the proposed changes immediately to gain a competitive advantage, assuming current safety standards are sufficient. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, operates under a complex web of international maritime regulations and national laws. The hiring assessment test aims to evaluate a candidate's understanding of these frameworks and their ability to apply them ethically and effectively. The core challenge lies in balancing operational efficiency with strict adherence to safety and environmental standards, particularly when faced with potential cost-saving measures that might compromise compliance. Careful judgment is required to identify and prioritize regulatory adherence over short-term financial gains. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes regulatory compliance and safety. This means systematically evaluating the proposed changes against all relevant COSCO shipping policies, international maritime conventions, such as SOLAS, MARPOL, and national flag state regulations. The assessment must identify potential risks to crew safety, environmental protection, and operational integrity, and propose mitigation strategies that do not violate any legal or ethical obligations. This approach is correct because it upholds the fundamental principles of responsible maritime operations, ensuring COSCO Shipping meets its legal duties and maintains its reputation as a safe and compliant operator. It aligns with the ethical imperative to protect life, property, and the environment, which are paramount in the shipping industry. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a comprehensive regulatory impact assessment fails to acknowledge the severe legal and financial repercussions of non-compliance. This could lead to significant fines, detention of vessels, reputational damage, and most critically, potential loss of life or environmental disaster. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes expediency over thoroughness, perhaps by implementing changes based on anecdotal evidence or incomplete information, risks overlooking critical safety or environmental hazards. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the rigorous standards expected of a major shipping company. A third incorrect approach that seeks to circumvent regulations through loopholes or by misinterpreting legal requirements is not only unethical but also illegal, exposing COSCO Shipping and its employees to severe penalties. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with understanding the full scope of applicable regulations. This involves consulting legal and compliance departments, reviewing internal policies, and staying updated on international maritime law. When evaluating proposed changes, a risk-based approach should be adopted, where potential impacts on safety, environment, and compliance are systematically identified, analyzed, and mitigated. Prioritizing regulatory adherence and ethical conduct over immediate cost savings is a non-negotiable principle in the maritime industry. Question 11. What factors determine the most appropriate approach for COSCO shipping when assessing the potential impact of a new cargo handling procedure on its compliance with international maritime safety regulations and national port state control requirements? Option A. The extent to which the new procedure aligns with established industry best practices and the potential for it to enhance operational efficiency, while also ensuring full adherence to SOLAS, MARPOL, and relevant national legislation. Option B. The perceived likelihood of the new procedure being detected as non-compliant by port state control inspectors during routine inspections. Option C. The subjective opinion of the vessel's master regarding the safety of the new procedure, without formal consultation with regulatory experts. Option D. The cost-effectiveness of implementing the new procedure compared to existing methods, with regulatory compliance being a secondary consideration. The correct answer is A. The extent to which the new procedure aligns with established industry best practices and the potential for it to enhance operational efficiency, while also ensuring full adherence to SOLAS, MARPOL, and relevant national legislation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, operates within a complex web of international maritime regulations and national laws. The hiring assessment test aims to evaluate a candidate's understanding of these frameworks and their ability to apply them ethically and effectively. A key challenge is discerning the most appropriate approach when faced with potentially conflicting or ambiguous regulatory requirements, ensuring compliance while also upholding the company's operational integrity and ethical standards. Careful judgment is required to prioritize safety, environmental protection, and legal adherence above all else. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates how proposed operational changes or new policies might affect COSCO Shipping's compliance with all relevant maritime laws, international conventions, such as SOLAS, MARPOL, and national regulations of the countries where it operates. This approach is correct because it is proactive and thorough, ensuring that potential risks and liabilities are identified and mitigated before they materialize. It aligns with the fundamental principles of maritime safety and environmental stewardship mandated by international bodies like the IMO and enforced by flag states and port states. By considering all potential impacts, COSCO Shipping can demonstrate due diligence and a commitment to responsible operations, which is a core ethical and legal expectation in the shipping industry. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings without considering regulatory implications would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the legal and ethical obligations to operate safely and in an environmentally sound manner. Such an approach could lead to severe penalties, operational disruptions, reputational damage, and most importantly, endanger lives and the marine environment. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes expediency over thoroughness, such as relying on outdated or incomplete regulatory guidance, would also be a significant failure. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and an insufficient understanding of the dynamic nature of maritime regulations, which are subject to frequent updates and amendments. This can result in unintentional noncompliance, leading to the same negative consequences as the cost-saving-only approach. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks relevant to the specific operational context. This involves consulting official sources, legal counsel, and industry best practices. Subsequently, a risk-based impact assessment should be conducted, evaluating potential consequences of any decision against these regulatory requirements. This assessment should consider legal, safety, environmental, and reputational impacts. The decision-making process should then prioritize compliance and safety, seeking expert advice when ambiguity exists, and documenting all assessments and decisions thoroughly. Question 12. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent pattern of minor deviations in fuel consumption for a specific COSCO shipping vessel during its trans-Pacific routes. These deviations are within the acceptable operational tolerances previously defined by the fleet management, but they are occurring more frequently than historical averages. Option A. Initiate a detailed investigation into the vessel's engine performance logs and maintenance records, cross-referencing with fuel quality reports and weather data for the period to identify any contributing factors to the deviations, and report findings to the compliance department. Option B. Classify the deviations as normal operational variance due to the vessel's age and continue monitoring without any immediate corrective actions or further investigation. Option C. Immediately report the deviations to the relevant maritime regulatory authority as a potential breach of fuel efficiency regulations, pending further analysis. Option D. Instruct the vessel's crew to implement immediate, minor adjustments to engine speed and trim to bring fuel consumption back within the historical average, without further investigation. The correct answer is A. Initiate a detailed investigation into the vessel's engine performance logs and maintenance records, cross-referencing with fuel quality reports and weather data for the period to identify any contributing factors to the deviations, and report findings to the compliance department. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires the assessment of potential risks and compliance issues arising from operational data within COSCO shipping. The core difficulty lies in interpreting the implications of the monitoring system's findings in the context of relevant maritime regulations and company policies, ensuring that any identified deviations are addressed appropriately without causing undue disruption or misinterpreting the severity of the situation. Careful judgment is needed to distinguish between minor operational fluctuations and significant compliance breaches. The correct approach involves a thorough and systematic review of the monitoring system's output, cross-referencing any anomalies with COSCO shipping's internal procedures and applicable maritime regulations. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes data-driven decision-making and adherence to established compliance frameworks. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of due diligence and proactive risk management, mandated by international maritime conventions and COSCO shipping's own operational guidelines, ensuring that potential violations are identified and rectified promptly and effectively. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate operational adjustments without a deeper compliance review fails to address the root cause of any deviation and may overlook potential regulatory infringements. This is professionally unacceptable as it neglects the responsibility to maintain a compliant operational environment. Another incorrect approach, which involves dismissing anomalies as insignificant without proper investigation, poses a significant regulatory risk. This can lead to undetected noncompliance, potentially resulting in penalties, operational disruptions, and reputational damage for COSCO shipping. A third incorrect approach, which involves escalating every minor fluctuation to senior management without initial assessment, demonstrates poor judgment and inefficient resource allocation, potentially overwhelming decision-makers with trivial matters and delaying action on more critical issues. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the operational context, followed by a detailed analysis of the monitoring data against established compliance benchmarks. This involves identifying deviations, assessing their potential impact on safety and regulatory adherence, and then determining the appropriate course of action, which may range from minor adjustments to formal investigations or reporting. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, proportionate, and aligned with both regulatory requirements and COSCO shipping's operational integrity. Question 13. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for COSCO shipping vessels to exceed permissible sulfur oxide emission limits in certain sensitive marine areas due to aging engine components and inconsistent fuel quality monitoring. Which of the following represents the most appropriate response to mitigate this identified risk? Option A. Implement a comprehensive program to upgrade engine components and enhance fuel quality testing protocols, coupled with targeted crew training on emission control procedures. Option B. Rely on existing crew experience to manage fuel quality and defer engine component upgrades until a formal breach is detected to avoid unnecessary expenditure. Option C. Conduct a series of informal discussions with port authorities to gauge their current enforcement focus on sulfur oxide emissions. Option D. Update the company's environmental policy statement to reflect a commitment to emission reduction without altering current operational practices or investment plans. The correct answer is A. Implement a comprehensive program to upgrade engine components and enhance fuel quality testing protocols, coupled with targeted crew training on emission control procedures. Explanation: This scenario presents a professional challenge because COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, operates within a complex web of international maritime regulations and national laws. The core difficulty lies in balancing the immediate operational needs of the company with its long-term compliance obligations and ethical responsibilities. A robust risk assessment must consider not only the potential for financial penalties, but also reputational damage and the safety of personnel and the environment. The question probes the understanding of how to proactively address potential noncompliance issues identified through risk assessment, emphasizing a forward-looking and responsible approach. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of identifying the root cause of the potential noncompliance, evaluating the severity of the risk, and developing specific, actionable mitigation strategies. This aligns with the principles of good corporate governance and the proactive risk management frameworks expected of major shipping companies. Specifically, it reflects a commitment to continuous improvement and adherence to the spirit and letter of regulations, rather than merely reacting to breaches. This approach is ethically sound as it prioritizes preventing harm and ensuring fair practices. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost saving without addressing the underlying issue fails to meet regulatory expectations. Regulations often mandate that companies have systems in place to identify and rectify noncompliance. Ignoring an identified risk or opting for a superficial fix, such as merely updating internal documentation without substantive operational changes, demonstrates a disregard for compliance and a potential for future, more severe breaches. This can lead to significant penalties, operational disruptions, and damage to COSCO Shipping's reputation. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or informal discussions to address a formally identified risk is professionally unsound. Regulatory compliance requires a structured and evidence-based approach. Decisions should be informed by data and documented procedures, not by informal opinions. This lack of rigor can lead to misdiagnosis of the problem and ineffective solutions, leaving COSCO Shipping vulnerable to continued noncompliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear framework. 1. Acknowledge and document the identified risk. 2. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis. 3. Assess the potential impact, financial, operational, reputational, safety. 4. Develop a range of mitigation options, considering feasibility, cost, and effectiveness. 5. Select and implement the most appropriate mitigation strategy, ensuring it is documented and monitored. 6. Regularly review and update risk assessments and mitigation plans. This structured approach ensures that COSCO Shipping maintains a strong compliance posture and operates responsibly. Question 14. The efficiency study reveals that certain operational procedures at COSCO Shipping could be streamlined to reduce turnaround times in port, potentially leading to significant cost savings. However, these proposed streamlining measures might impact existing protocols related to cargo stowage and ballast water management. Which approach best ensures COSCO Shipping's compliance with relevant maritime regulations and international conventions? Option A. Prioritize the implementation of the streamlining measures that offer the most immediate cost savings, assuming that industry best practices in cargo stowage and ballast water management are generally sufficient. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of the proposed streamlining measures against the specific regulatory framework governing COSCO Shipping's operations, including relevant international conventions and national laws, to identify and mitigate any potential compliance risks before implementation. Option C. Rely on the judgment of experienced operational staff to ensure that the streamlining measures are implemented in a manner that is good enough to avoid major incidents, without a formal review of specific regulatory requirements. Option D. Expedite the implementation of the streamlining measures to gain a competitive advantage, with a plan to address any potential regulatory issues that may arise after the changes are in effect. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of the proposed streamlining measures against the specific regulatory framework governing COSCO Shipping's operations, including relevant international conventions and national laws, to identify and mitigate any potential compliance risks before implementation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, operates under a complex web of international maritime regulations and national laws. The efficiency study's findings, if not handled with due diligence and adherence to the relevant regulatory framework, could lead to significant compliance issues, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The core challenge lies in balancing the pursuit of operational efficiency with the absolute imperative of regulatory compliance, particularly concerning safety and environmental standards. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes the identification and mitigation of any potential noncompliance with the specific regulatory framework governing COSCO Shipping's operations. This approach is professionally sound because it directly addresses the potential risks highlighted by the efficiency study. By systematically evaluating the implications of the study's findings against the established laws and guidelines, COSCO Shipping can proactively identify areas where proposed changes might contravene regulations, such as those pertaining to vessel maintenance, crew welfare, cargo handling, or emissions. This proactive stance ensures that any implemented efficiency measures are not only cost-effective, but also legally permissible and ethically responsible, safeguarding the company's license to operate and its commitment to maritime safety and environmental protection. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a comprehensive regulatory review would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the legal obligations COSCO Shipping has under its operating jurisdictions. Such an approach risks implementing changes that violate safety standards, leading to potential accidents, environmental damage, and severe penalties. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thoroughness would also be flawed. While efficiency is desired, rushing the process without adequate assessment of regulatory implications can lead to oversight of critical compliance requirements, resulting in the same negative consequences as a purely cost-driven approach. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or industry best practices without verifying their alignment with COSCO Shipping's specific regulatory environment is also problematic. Industry best practices are not universally applicable and may not satisfy the stringent requirements of the applicable laws and guidelines, leading to potential noncompliance. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the scope and implications of the efficiency study. This should be followed by a detailed review of the relevant regulatory framework applicable to COSCO Shipping's operations. A risk assessment matrix should then be employed to identify potential compliance gaps and their severity. Mitigation strategies should be developed and implemented, with a clear audit trail to demonstrate due diligence. Continuous monitoring and review are essential to ensure ongoing compliance and adapt to any changes in regulations or operational circumstances. Question 15. Benchmark analysis indicates that COSCO Shipping is considering a significant expansion into new international trade routes. To ensure compliance with relevant competition laws and prevent potential anti-competitive outcomes, which of the following approaches to assessing the impact of this expansion is most appropriate? Option A. Prioritizing rapid market share acquisition through aggressive pricing and service offerings, assuming that market forces will naturally correct any imbalances. Option B. Conducting a detailed analysis of the potential effects of the expansion on market structure, competition, and consumer welfare, and developing proactive mitigation strategies for any identified risks. Option C. Engaging in informal discussions with major competitors on these new routes to establish mutually agreeable service levels and pricing structures. Option D. Seeking regulatory approval based on the projected economic benefits to COSCO Shipping, without a deep dive into the specific competitive implications for existing markets. The correct answer is B. Conducting a detailed analysis of the potential effects of the expansion on market structure, competition, and consumer welfare, and developing proactive mitigation strategies for any identified risks. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's desire to expand its market presence and the stringent regulatory requirements designed to prevent anti-competitive practices. COSCO Shipping, as a major player, must navigate these regulations meticulously to avoid severe penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruption. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and implementing strategies that foster growth without crossing the line into illegal monopolistic behavior or unfair competition. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes understanding the potential effects of COSCO Shipping's proposed expansion on market competition, consumer welfare, and existing market participants. This assessment must be grounded in the specific competition laws and regulatory guidelines applicable to COSCO Shipping's operating jurisdictions. By proactively identifying potential concerns and developing mitigation strategies, COSCO Shipping demonstrates a commitment to compliance and responsible business conduct. This approach aligns with the spirit and letter of competition law, which aims to ensure fair markets and protect consumers from the negative consequences of excessive market power. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on aggressive market share acquisition without considering the competitive landscape would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach risks violating antitrust laws by engaging in predatory pricing, exclusionary practices, or other actions that stifle competition. Another incorrect approach, which involves seeking regulatory approval without a comprehensive understanding of the potential market impacts, demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the regulatory process. This could lead to a rejection of the expansion plans or, worse, regulatory sanctions for attempting to circumvent scrutiny. A third incorrect approach, which relies on informal understandings or agreements with competitors to manage market dynamics, is highly susceptible to being deemed anti-competitive collusion, a serious offense under most competition regimes. Professionals at COSCO Shipping should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant legal and regulatory landscape. This should be followed by a comprehensive risk assessment, identifying potential compliance issues related to market expansion. The next step involves developing and evaluating strategic options, prioritizing those that are both commercially viable and legally sound. Finally, continuous monitoring and adaptation are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance in a dynamic market environment. Question 16. Benchmark analysis indicates that COSCO Shipping is considering a significant expansion of its fleet and service routes, which approach best balances the company's growth ambitions with its absolute priority to adhere to all applicable maritime regulations and international maritime conventions. Option A. Conduct a thorough, forward-looking risk assessment for each proposed expansion, integrating regulatory compliance requirements into the design and operational planning phases, and establishing clear oversight mechanisms. Option B. Prioritize the expansion based on projected profitability, with a plan to address any regulatory issues that may arise post-implementation. Option C. Rely on the company's established track record of compliance to assume that new operations will also meet regulatory standards without extensive preemptive review. Option D. Delegate the responsibility for ensuring regulatory compliance solely to the captains and crew of the new vessels, assuming they possess the necessary expertise. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough, forward-looking risk assessment for each proposed expansion, integrating regulatory compliance requirements into the design and operational planning phases, and establishing clear oversight mechanisms. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's strategic growth objectives and the stringent regulatory requirements governing its operations. COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, must navigate a complex web of international maritime regulations, safety standards, and environmental protection laws. The pressure to expand market share and operational capacity can inadvertently lead to overlooking or downplaying potential risks that could have significant legal, financial, and reputational consequences. Careful judgment is required to balance commercial ambitions with unwavering adherence to compliance. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive risk assessment that integrates regulatory compliance from the outset of any strategic initiative. This means not merely identifying potential risks, but thoroughly evaluating their likelihood and impact in the context of COSCO Shipping's specific operational environment and the applicable regulatory framework. This approach ensures that any expansion or new venture is designed with compliance as a foundational element, thereby mitigating potential violations and associated penalties. It aligns with the ethical imperative to operate responsibly and sustainably, safeguarding both the company and the broader maritime ecosystem. Regulatory justification stems from the overarching principles of maritime safety, environmental stewardship, and fair competition, which are codified in international conventions and national laws that COSCO Shipping is obligated to uphold. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings over thorough regulatory due diligence is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of the long-term implications of noncompliance. Regulatory bodies impose significant fines, operational restrictions, and reputational damage for breaches, which far outweigh any short-term financial gains. Another incorrect approach, which relies on historical compliance records as a sole indicator of future adherence, is also flawed. The maritime landscape is dynamic, with evolving regulations and emerging risks. Past success does not guarantee future compliance without continuous monitoring and adaptation. Furthermore, an approach that delegates regulatory oversight solely to operational teams without senior management buy-in and dedicated resources creates a significant governance gap, increasing the likelihood of oversight and noncompliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant regulatory landscape. This involves identifying all applicable laws, conventions, and guidelines. Subsequently, a robust risk management process should be implemented, where potential compliance issues are systematically identified, assessed, and prioritized. Strategic decisions should then be informed by this risk assessment, ensuring that compliance is embedded in the planning and execution phases. Regular audits, training, and a culture of ethical conduct are crucial for maintaining ongoing adherence and fostering a proactive compliance mindset within COSCO Shipping. Question 17. Benchmark analysis indicates that COSCO Shipping is considering a significant upgrade to its fleet management software. Which approach to assessing the potential impact of this upgrade best aligns with the regulatory framework and operational realities for a company operating under international maritime law and relevant national legislation? Option A. Undertake a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates all potential risks to safety, security, and environmental protection, consults with relevant operational personnel, and develops detailed mitigation and contingency plans aligned with SOLAS, MARPOL, and other applicable regulations. Option B. Rely on the software vendor's assurances regarding compliance and operational suitability without conducting an independent assessment of COSCO Shipping's specific operational context. Option C. Implement the software upgrade immediately and address any identified issues reactively as they arise during operational use. Option D. Conduct a rapid assessment focusing primarily on cost savings and operational efficiency gains, with a cursory review of potential safety implications. The correct answer is D. Conduct a rapid assessment focusing primarily on cost savings and operational efficiency gains, with a cursory review of potential safety implications. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's operational needs and the stringent regulatory requirements governing maritime safety and environmental protection. COSCO Shipping, as a major global player, must navigate these complexities while ensuring compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the urgency of operational efficiency with the non-negotiable mandate of adhering to safety protocols and environmental standards, which are designed to prevent catastrophic incidents and protect marine ecosystems. A hasty or incomplete impact assessment can lead to significant regulatory breaches, financial penalties, reputational damage, and most importantly, endangerment of life and the environment. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and systematic impact assessment that rigorously evaluates potential risks and consequences across all relevant operational areas, with a specific focus on adherence to the regulatory framework applicable to COSCO Shipping's operations. This means proactively identifying all potential hazards associated with the proposed change, assessing their likelihood and severity, and developing robust mitigation strategies that align with international maritime conventions and national regulations. This approach ensures that COSCO Shipping not only meets its legal obligations, but also upholds its ethical responsibility to operate safely and sustainably. The justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of due diligence, which requires companies to take all reasonable steps to prevent harm. Regulatory frameworks, such as the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea (SOLAS) and the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships (MARPOL), mandate such proactive risk management. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed of implementation over thoroughness, leading to a superficial assessment that overlooks critical safety or environmental concerns. This could manifest as a failure to consult all relevant stakeholders, including crew members who possess invaluable operational knowledge, or a disregard for potential cumulative impacts of the change when combined with existing operations. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on historical data without considering the unique context of the proposed change, potentially leading to an underestimation of risks. A further failure would be to adopt mitigation measures that are merely symbolic or do not meet the stringent standards set by maritime regulations, such as inadequate emergency response plans or insufficient crew training. These failures expose COSCO shipping to significant legal liabilities and operational risks, violating the core principles of maritime safety and environmental stewardship. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape. This involves identifying all applicable laws, conventions, and guidelines. Next, a thorough risk identification and assessment methodology should be applied, ensuring that all potential impacts, both direct and indirect, are considered. This should be followed by the development of a comprehensive mitigation plan that is practical, effective, and compliant. Finally, a robust monitoring and review mechanism should be established to ensure the ongoing effectiveness of the implemented measures and to adapt to any unforeseen circumstances. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates concerns regarding the potential impact of COSCO shipping's new fleet expansion on marine biodiversity in key operational areas. Which approach best addresses these concerns within the regulatory framework governing maritime environmental protection? Option A. Prioritize the economic benefits of the fleet expansion and address environmental concerns only if they lead to significant operational disruptions or direct regulatory penalties. Option B. Delegate the responsibility for environmental impact assessment to third-party contractors without direct oversight or integration of stakeholder feedback into the decision-making process. Option C. Implement standard operational procedures that comply with minimum regulatory requirements for emissions and waste disposal, assuming these are sufficient to address all potential impacts. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive environmental impact assessment that actively incorporates feedback from environmental organizations, local communities, and regulatory bodies to identify and mitigate potential risks. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive environmental impact assessment that actively incorporates feedback from environmental organizations, local communities, and regulatory bodies to identify and mitigate potential risks. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's operational needs and the potential environmental impact of its activities, particularly in the context of maritime operations. COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, must navigate complex international and national regulations designed to protect marine ecosystems. The challenge lies in balancing economic viability with environmental stewardship, requiring a nuanced understanding of regulatory frameworks and ethical responsibilities. Careful judgment is essential to ensure compliance and maintain the company's reputation. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive environmental impact assessment that integrates stakeholder feedback from the outset. This approach is right because it aligns with the principles of sustainable development and corporate social responsibility, which are increasingly embedded in maritime regulations and industry best practices. Specifically, international conventions like MARPOL, International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, and national environmental protection laws mandate that shipping companies assess and mitigate the environmental risks associated with their operations. Engaging stakeholders ensures that diverse perspectives, including those of environmental groups, local communities, and regulatory bodies, are considered, leading to more robust and acceptable mitigation strategies. This collaborative process fosters transparency and builds trust, crucial for long-term operational sustainability. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss stakeholder feedback as mere inconvenience, or to conduct a superficial assessment that only addresses the most obvious environmental concerns. This failure stems from a disregard for the spirit and intent of environmental regulations, which often require a thorough and anticipatory approach to risk management. Such an approach could lead to regulatory noncompliance, fines, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost-saving measures over genuine environmental protection, even if it means implementing only the minimum legally required actions. This ethically flawed strategy ignores the broader societal expectation for responsible corporate behavior and can result in long-term environmental degradation, which ultimately impacts the company's social license to operate. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of all applicable environmental regulations and international standards. This should be followed by a systematic process of identifying potential environmental impacts, actively seeking and integrating stakeholder input, developing comprehensive mitigation plans, and establishing robust monitoring and reporting mechanisms. The process should be iterative, allowing for adjustments based on new information or feedback. Question 19. Benchmark analysis indicates that COSCO Shipping is considering a new route for a fleet of vessels that may involve transiting through ecologically sensitive marine areas. Which approach best ensures compliance with international maritime environmental regulations and responsible operational practices? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive environmental impact assessment, consulting relevant international conventions like MARPOL and national regulations to identify potential risks and develop mitigation strategies before commencing the new route. Option B. Delegate the decision-making to the vessel captains, trusting their on-the-spot judgment to navigate any environmental challenges encountered along the new route. Option C. Rely on the existing environmental management system, assuming it is sufficient to cover the new route without specific additional assessment, as the vessels are already compliant with general maritime standards. Option D. Proceed with the new route immediately to capitalize on potential cost savings and address any environmental concerns that may arise retrospectively. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the new route immediately to capitalize on potential cost savings and address any environmental concerns that may arise retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a company's operational needs and the stringent regulatory requirements governing maritime safety and environmental protection. COSCO Shipping, as a global operator, must navigate complex international and national laws. The challenge lies in ensuring that operational decisions, particularly those involving potential environmental impact, are not only cost-effective, but also fully compliant with the relevant regulatory framework, which prioritizes safety and environmental stewardship. A failure to do so can result in severe penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive impact assessment that rigorously evaluates potential environmental consequences of proposed operational changes. This approach aligns with the precautionary principle often embedded in maritime environmental regulations, which mandates that where there are threats of serious or irreversible damage, lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing cost-effective measures to prevent environmental degradation. Specifically, this would involve consulting relevant international conventions such as MARPOL, International Convention, for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, and national implementing legislation, ensuring that any proposed changes to operational procedures or vessel modifications undergo thorough environmental risk assessment and mitigation planning before implementation. This demonstrates a commitment to responsible corporate citizenship and regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost savings without a thorough environmental impact assessment would fail to meet regulatory obligations. For instance, bypassing a detailed assessment to expedite a change in ballast water management systems, even if seemingly cost-effective, could violate MARPOL Annex Roman II or national regulations if the new system poses a higher risk of introducing invasive species. Similarly, an approach that relies solely on historical operational data without considering potential new environmental risks associated with a proposed route change or cargo type would be deficient. This neglects the dynamic nature of environmental regulations and the need for continuous risk evaluation. Another incorrect approach might involve deferring mitigation measures until after an incident occurs, which is contrary to the proactive stance required by most environmental protection laws and would likely result in significant penalties and remediation costs. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that integrates regulatory compliance and environmental stewardship into the core of operational planning. This involves establishing clear internal policies that mandate environmental impact assessments for all significant operational changes, fostering a culture of compliance, and ensuring that personnel are adequately trained on relevant regulations. When faced with a decision, the process should involve identifying all applicable regulations, consulting with environmental and legal experts, conducting a thorough risk assessment, developing and implementing mitigation strategies, and establishing monitoring mechanisms to ensure ongoing compliance. Question 20. Benchmark analysis indicates that COSCO Shipping is considering implementing a new automated system for loading and unloading bulk cargo at a major port. This system promises increased efficiency, but involves novel mechanical processes and potentially different waste streams. Which approach best ensures COSCO Shipping's compliance with relevant maritime regulations and environmental protection guidelines? Option A. Implement the new system on a trial basis in a less critical operational area to observe its performance and address any problems as they arise. Option B. Proceed with the implementation of the new system, relying on the expertise of the Port Authority and existing internal safety checklists to manage any unforeseen issues. Option C. Prioritize the efficiency gains promised by the new system and address any regulatory or environmental concerns only if they are explicitly raised by external authorities after implementation. Option D. Conduct a thorough, documented impact assessment that systematically evaluates the potential environmental, safety, and regulatory implications of the new automated system, including its interaction with existing port infrastructure and waste management protocols, and develop specific mitigation plans based on the findings. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the implementation of the new system, relying on the expertise of the Port Authority and existing internal safety checklists to manage any unforeseen issues. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because COSCO Shipping, as a global entity, operates within a complex web of international maritime regulations and national laws. The core difficulty lies in balancing the company's operational efficiency and commercial interests with its legal and ethical obligations concerning environmental protection and safety. A thorough impact assessment is crucial to proactively identify potential risks and liabilities associated with new operational procedures, ensuring compliance and mitigating harm. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically evaluates the potential environmental and safety consequences of the proposed new cargo handling procedures. This assessment must consider all relevant regulations, including those pertaining to emissions, waste disposal, and the safe stowage of cargo, as well as international conventions applicable to maritime operations. By identifying potential negative impacts and developing mitigation strategies, COSCO Shipping can demonstrate due diligence, adhere to its legal obligations, and uphold its commitment to responsible maritime practices. This proactive stance is essential for preventing incidents, avoiding penalties, and maintaining the company's reputation. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the new procedures without a formal impact assessment, assuming existing protocols are sufficient. This overlooks the potential for unforeseen risks and fails to meet the regulatory requirement for due diligence in assessing the impact of operational changes. Another incorrect approach would be to conduct a superficial assessment that only considers immediate operational benefits, neglecting potential long-term environmental or safety repercussions. This demonstrates a disregard for regulatory frameworks that mandate a holistic evaluation of operational changes and their broader consequences. Finally, relying solely on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few experienced personnel without a structured and documented assessment process is also professionally unsound. This lacks the rigor required to identify all potential risks and ensure compliance with the detailed requirements of maritime law and environmental regulations. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape. This involves identifying all applicable laws, conventions, and company policies. Next, a systematic risk identification and assessment process should be implemented, considering all potential impacts. Based on the assessment, mitigation strategies should be developed and evaluated for their effectiveness and feasibility. Finally, decisions should be made and documented, ensuring that all actions are aligned with legal requirements ethical considerations, and the company's commitment to safety and environmental stewardship.